Hello, how are we doing? Before I start, I do need to say something. I need to give a shout out to my hairdresser, Mira.
Yeah.
We cannot for a long time. It takes a long time to get this color. And we talk about what podcasts we love. And she was like, you know what would be a good idea? You make a burlesque show about your favorite podcast, and boom.
Woo!
Before I start, steady. We'll get this started. All right, hello. My name is Dr. Timaree, and I'm going to be talking to you about butts.
Yeah.
Briefly, about how fashion has approached butts. Why do we have butts? Most animals don't. I don't know. But what it does is gives us endurance. We are not a particular speedy species, but we can beat any animal in a land race if it's long enough. We can beat horses. It's been proven. This is especially true for women who exceed men at these extreme distances. When you have a butt, if you have a butt, it's a lot of muscle, it's a lot of fat, really localized, and just by looking at someone's butt and how it's moving, you can tell a lot about them. You get a rough approximation of their age, their athleticism, their health. You can see how much estrogen they've been exposed to. From there, you can extrapolate things like fertility and ascribe beauty to it. And humans have been ascribing beauty to butts for all of recorded history. Some psychologists have suggested that our attraction to breast cleavage is actually just an echo of our desire to see a butt from behind. This attraction is universal. This fascination is universal across cultures. However, which butts we consider to be attractive is extremely cultural. It very much depends on where and when you are and what is going on, like say if there's a war. If there's a war, we tend to like flesh your bodies a little bit. But really, what we find most attractive is what is expensive and difficult to maintain. Now, we see a lot of women's bodies on display, but this stuff, again, across genders. And I would argue that, in fact, men's butts are more taboo. Heated rivalry. And we have a harder time talking about it. But this is stuff that applies to everybody, gender regardless. Now, when we're talking about butts and we're talking about fashion, we have to take into practical considerations, right? If you're making clothes, you're not just thinking about sexiness, you have to think about all the stuff that butts do. So that comes in. Let's not talk about that anymore. Okay, also, if we're going to talk about butts and fashion, we have to talk about the historical and continued objectification and fetishization of black bodies.
Woo!
An extreme example of this that we just need to discuss is the story of Sarah Baartman, who was literally on display for most of her adult life, and her body continued to be on display in museums until the 1980s. And again in the 1990s.
Sad.
Again, just need to mention this. All right, so we're talking about fashion, we're talking about butts. What are we gonna do with that? So most of fashion around butts is trying to either minimize or maximize the emphasis on the butt. Now, not just its shape in and of itself, but also its relationship to the waist. You've heard of waist-hip ratio? It's a pretty big feature of not only beauty standard stuff, but it's also one of the biggest variables in fashion. Sometimes we're looking at something a little more tubular, and sometimes we're looking at a little more ba-bam and a little bit of an hourglass, and that is one of the big features that varies. Now again, it's a practical matter. Why do we have petticoats? The answer is because we didn't used to wear underwear. People didn't wear underwear, but if you go horseback riding in a dress, you might want a petticoat. It's wedgie defense. But it also gave you a little ba-dam. And so people started just going like, all right, so let's just wear a bustle. Let's just put a big fake butt on. And it not only showed off your curves, it also showed off how much money you had, because you had all this extra fabric for no other purpose than to just have a little donk, which is pretty great. Now, if you want to emphasize, again, that waist-hip ratio, you add a corset on top of it. Now this picture I chose specifically because, again, people of all genders have been wearing corsets. So we want to emphasize that. All right, so sometimes what they privilege is small butts. All right, this varies why. It is definitely a feature of white and Asian culture that there's more of a preference for a small butt. But that varies, and sometimes the association is actually with an era of liberation for women, and women want to have less ostensibly feminine characteristics, and the clothes reflect that. Now, big butts have been in for a while. Shout out to big butts. And this is partly due to the rise of hip-hop culture in the 1980s, which is also when people started to wear denim jeans in the mainstream, really emphasizing butts and the size of butts. Body positivity has given us the freedom to celebrate all the different types of beauty, not just a monolith, not just a single value, but all the different types of beautiful butts that are in the world. And I am so excited about that. However, the era of the butt is not without its own oppressiveness. For example, one of the most popular and most dangerous plastic surgeries right now is the Brazilian butt lift, where fat is taken from one part of the body and put into the butt to make it higher and make it bigger. So this is a complicated thing. It is not unidirectional. So if we were to summarize what we have learned, butts are interesting, all butts are beautiful, and you should wear whatever makes you feel fly.
Woo!